The smell hit me first. Stale beer, cigarettes, and something else. Something sour and rotten. I stood frozen in the doorway of my lake house, keys still dangling from my fingers, unable to process what I was seeing. The place I'd worked so hard to create, my sanctuary, my pride and joy, it was destroyed. I bought this place 3 years ago after my divorce from Marcus. It took every penny of my settlement and a sizable loan, but it was worth it. Lake Evergreen had always been my happy place since childhood, and owning a piece of it represented everything I'd fought for: independence, peace, and a fresh start at 34. I'd spent countless weekends refinishing floors, painting walls, and hunting for the perfect furnishings. My sister Kelly called it my healing project, and she wasn't wrong. Now, as I stepped carefully over shattered glass and soggy carpet, my healing project looked like a war zone. The vintage coffee table I'd restored was broken clean in half. The walls I'd spent weeks painting the perfect shade of coastal blue were defaced with crude drawings and what appeared to be food stains. My collection of first edition novels, Aisai Minds, splurge I'd justified as an investment in both financial and emotional terms, lay waterlogged near an overturned bookshelf. My phone rang, startling me out of my shocked stupor. It was Kelly. "Are you there yet? How's the place looking after the winter?" I couldn't even form words at first, just a choked sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Lacey? What's wrong?" "Someone broke in," I finally managed. "The place is destroyed. Everything is just—" I trailed off, noticing a familiar jacket hanging over one of my dining chairs. Not someone. Connor. My younger brother, the golden child, the can-do-no-wrong baby of the family, had apparently decided my lake house would make the perfect party venue during my 2-month absence. "I have to call you back," I told Kelly, hanging up before she could respond. The rage building inside me was unlike anything I'd felt before. I'm typically the peacekeeper in the family, the one who smooths things over when Connor gets into trouble or when my parents are being unreasonable. Professional conflict resolution is literally my job. I mediate corporate disputes for a living. But standing amid the wreckage of my personal haven, I felt something snap inside me. I took out my phone and started documenting everything. Every broken item, every stain, every hole in the wall. I took video walking through each room, narrating the damage in a voice so calm it scared even me. Then I called Connor. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice groggy despite it being almost known. "Hey sis, what's up?" "What's up?" I repeated flatly. "Is that I'm standing in what's left of my lake house. Care to explain?" There was a pause, then a nervous laugh. "Oh shit, you weren't supposed to go up there until Memorial Day." The casual dismissal in his tone made my blood boil. "Connor, what did you do to my house? Look, it's not that bad. We had a little get-together for Kevin's birthday back in March. Things got a little out of hand, but I was going to clean it up before you went up there again." "A little out of hand? The place is destroyed. There's mold growing on my walls. My furniture is broken. I stopped, noticing for the first time the shards of what used to be my grandmother's china cabinet. The one piece I'd insisted on taking when we divided my grandparents' belongings after they passed. My breath caught in my throat. "I'll come up and help clean this weekend," Connor offered, as if he was doing me a favor. "Like I said, you weren't supposed to be there yet." "That's your response? That I wasn't supposed to find out about this?" "This isn't a broken glass, Connor. This is thousands of dollars in damage to my property. This is breaking and entering." "Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. You gave me a key for emergencies. This wasn't an emergency. This was you using my house without permission and destroying it in the process. Whatever. You can afford to fix it. It's not like you don't have the money." And there it was. The familiar refrain that had followed me since I became successful. Because I'd worked my way up from an entry-level HR position to partner at a prestigious consulting firm. Because I'd managed my finances well and lived below my means to build security for myself, I was expected to bankroll everyone else's irresponsibility. "This conversation is over," I said. "You'll be hearing from me." I hung up and immediately called my parents. They needed to know what their precious baby boy had done this time. My mother answered, "Lacey, what a lovely surprise. Dad and I were just talking about you. We're thinking of coming to visit the lake house this summer. It's been ages since—" "Connor trashed my house," I interrupted. "He broke in and had a party while I was gone. The place is demolished." There was a pause. "Oh, honey, I'm sure it's not that bad. You know how you can be a little particular about your things." I felt that familiar twist in my gut, the one that always came when my mother invalidated my feelings. "Mom, I'm looking at thousands of dollars worth of damage. This isn't about being particular. My property has been vandalized." "Well," she sighed, "boys will be boys. Connor mentioned he had a small get-together there. I'm sure he didn't mean any harm." "He didn't mention it to me. That's trespassing. Don't." "Be ridiculous, Lacey. He's your brother. Family doesn't trespass." I could hear my father in the background asking what was going on, and my mother's muffled explanation. Then, my father's voice came on the line. "Now listen here, Lacey. Your brother made a mistake. He's young, still figuring things out. You're established. You can afford to fix whatever needs fixing." "That's not the point, Dad. The point is you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Connor feels terrible. He's offered to help clean up. Clean up doesn't fix broken furniture or replace ruined books. It doesn't erase the mold growing on my walls or fix the hole in my bathroom door." "We raised you to be more understanding than this," my mother chimed in, having apparently taken the call off speaker. "Connor's going through a rough patch right now. He just needs some support, not his big sister threatening him." "I haven't threatened anyone," I said, though the idea was becoming more appealing by the second. "I'm simply informing you that your son destroyed my property and there will be consequences." "What's that supposed to mean?" My father again, his voice sharp. "It means I'm going to document everything, get estimates for repairs and replacements, and Connor is going to pay for the damage he caused." My mother's laugh was brittle. "Honey, he barely makes rent at that starter job of his. Where do you think he's going to get that kind of money?" "That's not my problem," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. He should have thought of that before he invited people to trash my house. "You really need to let this go," my father said, his tone shifting to the authoritative one that had ended so many discussions throughout my childhood. "Family looks out for each other. Connor's apologized. Now you need to be the bigger person. Here." "I've been the bigger person my entire life," I said quietly. "Not this time." I hung up and sat down on the only chair that wasn't broken or stained, overwhelmed by both the mess surrounding me and the realization that I was completely on my own in this. My family, the people who should have been outraged on my behalf, expected me to simply absorb this blow because I could afford it. But it wasn't about the money. It was about respect, boundaries, consequences. I spent the rest of the day cataloging the damage, taking more pictures, making lists of what could be salvaged and what needed to be replaced. I called a cleaning service and scheduled an appointment for the following day. I contacted a contractor about the structural damage to one of the bathroom walls, where it looked like someone had punched through the drywall. That night, I slept in my car rather than in the disaster zone that used to be my bedroom. As I curled up in the reclined driver's seat of my SUV, wrapped in the emergency blanket I kept in my trunk, I made a decision. This wasn't going to be brushed under the rug. Not this time. The next morning, I drove into town and found a small cafe with reliable Wi-Fi. I spent hours researching my options, consulting with my homeowner's insurance, who informed me that intentional damage caused by a family member wouldn't be covered. And finally, reluctantly, reaching out to my friend Jasmine, who practiced family law. "You should file a police report," she told me after I'd explained the situation. "This is vandalism and breaking and entering, family or not." "I don't want to press charges," I said, though a part of me wondered if that was still true. I just want him to take responsibility and pay for the damage. Then document everything. Get official estimates for all repairs and replacements. Send a formal demand letter outlining the costs and giving a deadline for payment. Make it clear that if payment isn't received, you'll pursue legal action, including filing that police report. My parents will lose their minds. Your parents aren't the ones whose property was destroyed, Jasmine pointed out. And from what you've told me, they've been enabling this behavior for years. She wasn't wrong. Connor had been bailed out of every consequence since childhood. When he crashed my father's car at 16, they bought him his own as a learning experience. When he flunked out of college after partying through his first year, they paid for him to attend a more expensive private university where he did the exact same thing. When he couldn't hold down a job because he wouldn't show up on time, my father pulled strings to get him a position at a friend's company where he was still underperforming but protected by nepotism. You need to decide what matters more, Jasmine continued. Keeping the peace with your family or standing up for yourself? The answer seemed obvious when she put it that way. Over the next week, I put together what Jasmine called my damage dossier. The cleaning service alone cost $1,200 due to the extensive nature of the mess and the biohazard elements. Apparently, someone had vomited in multiple locations and left it to fester for weeks. The contractor estimated $3,800 for repairs to the bathroom wall, a broken window, and damage to the hardwood floors. Furniture replacement would run about $4,500 for just the essential pieces. My ruined books were harder to value, but conservative estimates put them at around $2,000. All told, Connor's little get-together had caused over $11,500 in damage. Drafted the demand letter with Jasmine's help, keeping it factual and unemotional. I included copies of all estimates and photographs of the damage. I gave Connor 30 days to either pay in full or agree to a payment plan with a signed agreement. I made it clear that failure to respond would result in legal action, including but not limited to a civil suit and a police report for vandalism and breaking and entering. I sent copies to both Connor and my parents, then braced myself for the fallout. It came within hours. My phone exploded with calls and texts. I let them all go to voicemail, not ready to face the barrage of guilt and manipulation I knew would be coming my way. Instead, I focused on making my lake house habitable again. The cleaning crew had done what they could, but the place still felt violated, tainted by what had happened there. I finally listened to the voicemails that evening. Connor's was what I expected: angry, defensive, accusing me of overreacting and trying to ruin his life. My mother's was tearful, asking how I could do this to my own brother, reminding me that family should support each other through mistakes. My father's was coldly furious, calling me selfish and vindictive, warning that I would regret this decision. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? Was I letting bitterness over past favoritism cloud my judgment? Was I willing to fracture my family over material possessions? But then I looked around at the shell of my sanctuary. This wasn't about possessions. This was about a lifetime of enabling behavior that had culminated in the destruction of something precious to me, followed by the expectation that I would simply accept it because family. I didn't return their calls. Instead, I sent a group text. I've made my position clear in the letter. I'm open to discussing payment arrangements if needed. The deadline stands. The days that followed were tense. Kelly, who had always straddled the line between supporting me and keeping peace with our parents, called to try to mediate. I get why you're upset, she said, but is this really worth blowing up the family? I'm not blowing up anything, I replied. I'm simply asking for accountability. You know Connor can't afford to pay that kind of money. Then he shouldn't have caused that kind of damage. Lacey, please. Mom's a wreck. Dad's furious. Thanksgiving is next week, and right now, no one's speaking to each other. Thanksgiving. I'd forgotten about our annual family gathering, scheduled to be at my parents' house this year. The thought of sitting across from Connor while everyone Pretended nothing had happened made my stomach turn. Maybe I should skip it this year, I suggested. That would break Mom's heart and you know it, Kelly said. Can't you just, I don't know, work something out before then? Give Connor more time to pay, or accept his offer to help with repairs instead of money? His help is what caused this mess in the first place, and I've already been more than reasonable with the payment timeline. Kelly sighed. I just don't want to see the family torn apart over this. Neither do I said honestly. But I also don't want to keep enabling behavior that's ultimately harmful to everyone, including Connor. We left it unresolved. As Thanksgiving approached, I still hadn't heard directly from Connor or my parents, though Kelly kept me updated on their reactions, none of which had evolved beyond anger and disbelief that I would do this to family. I decided to attend Thanksgiving dinner after all. Avoiding it would only postpone the inevitable confrontation and potentially give them more ammunition against me. Besides, I'd done nothing wrong. I had nothing to hide from. I arrived at my parents' house with a sweet potato casserole and steeled nerves. My mother's greeting was cool, her hug stiff and brief. My father barely acknowledged me, offering only a curt nod before returning to the football game on TV. Connor was nowhere to be seen. He's running late, Kelly whispered when I asked. Mom's been crying all morning. This is going to be a disaster. It doesn't have to be, I said. All they need to do is acknowledge that what happened was wrong and work with me on making it right. Kelly looked skeptical. You know that's not how our family operates. She was right, of course. Our family operated on a strict hierarchy of importance, with Connor's feelings and needs always at the top, followed by our parents' desire to maintain a specific image of familial harmony, followed by Kelly's role as peacekeeper, and finally, if there was room, my inconvenient tendency to expect reasonable adult behavior. Connor arrived just as we were sitting down to dinner. He didn't look at me, taking the seat furthest from mine at the large dining table. The tension was thick enough to cut with the carving knife my father was using on the turkey with more force than necessary. We made it through the serving of food in strained silence. My mother attempted small talk about the weather and her garden club, but it fell flat amid the unspoken hostility circulating the table. Finally, as we began to eat, my father cleared his throat. I think it's time we cleared the air, he announced. This situation has gotten out of hand. I set down my fork, preparing for battle. I agree. Your brother made a mistake, my father continued, as if I hadn't spoken. A lapse in judgment, but your response has been vindictive and disproportionate. Destroying over $11,000 worth of my property goes beyond a lapse in judgment, I countered. And asking for compensation isn't vindictive, it's a natural consequence. We've always taught you kids that family comes first, my mother interjected, her voice wobbling. That we support each other through thick and thin. Support doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior, I said, and it shouldn't be a one-way street. Connor finally looked up from his plate. I said I was sorry. I offered to help clean up. What more do you want from me? I want you to take responsibility for your actions, I replied evenly. That means paying for the damage you caused. You know I can't afford that, he exploded. You're just doing this to punish me because you've always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. The table fell silent. My mother gasped. My father's face reddened. Kelly closed her eyes as if in pain, and something inside me settled. In his anger, Connor had accidentally revealed the truth that had shaped our family dynamics for decades. They did love him more. They always had. And they expected me to accept that as normal, to continue making sacrifices to prove my worthiness of the lesser love they offered me. This isn't about love or jealousy, I said quietly. This is about respect. Connor didn't respect my property or my boundaries, and none of you respect me enough to acknowledge that what he did was deeply wrong. Of course we respect you, my mother protested. Then act like it. Stop dismissing my feelings. Stop expecting me to clean up Connor's messes, literally in this case. Stop treating me like the unreasonable one for having perfectly normal boundaries. My father's jaw tightened. If you go through with this, you'll damage your relationship with your brother, perhaps irreparably. That's Connor's choice, I said. I'm simply asking for what's fair. Life isn't fair, my father countered, his voice rising. Family means sacrifice. It means forgiveness. I am willing to forgive, I said, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Enough. My mother's voice was uncharacteristically sharp. This is Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be grateful for each other, not at each other's throats. I am grateful, I said. I'm grateful that this situation has finally opened my eyes to patterns I've accepted for far too long. I stood up from the table. Thank you for dinner, but I think it's best if I go now. Lacey, please, Kelly started, but I shook my head. I love you all, but I won't participate in this anymore. Connor, the offer in my letter stands. Mom, Dad, I hope someday you can understand that what I'm doing isn't about hurting anyone. It's about healing something broken in how we relate to each other. I walked out despite their protests, feeling strangely lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I'd spoken my truth without softening it to protect their feelings. I'd set a boundary and held it, despite the immense pressure to cave. The following week was quiet. No calls, no texts. I focused on restoring my lake house, finding a strange parallel between the process of repairing the physical damage and the emotional work I was doing in therapy sessions hastily arranged after the Thanksgiving debacle. Then, 10 days after Thanksgiving, I received a check in the mail. No note, just a check for the full amount of the damages, with Connor's signature. The same day, my mother left a voicemail asking if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. We met at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. She looked tired, older somehow. Connor paid, I said after we'd ordered our drinks. She nodded. Your father and I helped him. We've been doing some thinking since Thanksgiving. I waited, not willing to make this easier for her. You were right, she finally said, the words clearly difficult for her. We've enabled Connor's behavior for years. We thought we were helping him, but... She trailed off, then gathered herself. But we weren't, and we haven't been fair to you in the process. It was more acknowledgement than I'd ever expected to hear from her. I can't promise we'll change overnight, she continued. These patterns are deeply ingrained, but we're trying. Connor's seeing a therapist now, did he tell you? And your father and I are going to family counseling. We'd like you to join us when you're ready. I felt tears prick at my eyes. I'd like that, eventually. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Lacey. It couldn't have been easy to stand up to all of us. It wasn't, I admitted, but it was necessary. We talked for over an hour, beginning the long, complicated process of untangling decades of harmful family dynamics. There were no easy fixes, no magical reconciliations. But there was honesty, perhaps for the first time. When I returned to my lake house the following weekend, most of the repairs had been completed. The furniture had been replaced, the walls repainted, the floors refinished. It looked like my sanctuary again, but I realized the space had been transformed in ways that went beyond the physical. This house now represented not just my independence and healing from my divorce, but also my refusal to be diminished by the people who should have valued me most. It stood as a testament to my worth, to my right to be treated with respect. As I sat on my new couch, watching the sunset over the lake, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead with my family would be challenging, full of old habits to break and new boundaries to maintain. But for the first time, I was approaching that journey as an equal participant, not as the designated peacekeeper willing to sacrifice my own needs for harmony. My phone buzzed with a text from Connor. Can we talk? In person? I hesitated only briefly before responding. Yes, next weekend at the lake house. but we do it my way this time." His reply came quickly. "Agreed. And Lacey, I really am sorry. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a beginning." And beginnings, I was learning, could be even more powerful than endings. In standing up for myself, I hadn't lost my family as I'd feared. Instead, I'd created the possibility for something I'd never truly had, a family based on mutual respect rather than prescribed roles, a family where love didn't require the sacrifice of dignity, a family where even painful truths could be spoken aloud. I'd paid a high price for this lesson, financially, emotionally, relationally. But as I looked around at my restored sanctuary, I knew with absolute certainty that it had been worth every penny.